Okay, everybody, well, welcome to December's podcast. We're going to be doing a little bit of a different podcast this time. I'm joined by Steve, our CEO. We're going to have a bit of a review of what's been happening at Cumbria Wildlife Trust over the year and pick out some of the highlights. And Liz has been doing some recording and following up some of the episodes that we've done during the year, seeing where they're up to, seeing how things are going on some of the different projects. Now, it's always going to be difficult to cover an organisation that does such a huge amount of work. So we're not going to be able to mention everything. And if we leave anything out, especially anything you're involved with as a volunteer or whatever, it's just because there's so much going on. So, Steve.
Good morning.
Give us an idea of what your main highlights were for the year.
Well, as you said, Joe, it's been an incredibly busy year. Lots of fantastic things happening thanks to our staff and volunteers and members. And it is really difficult to highlight and pick out one or two, because I don't want to imply that if we don't have time to mention everything, it doesn't mean to say it's not being a highlight and being important. But a few things I would just come off the top of my head in terms of really special things. First, I would mention the opening of Coal Springs Community Nature Reserve, which is up in Penrith, on the outskirts of Penrith, where the team has been doing an amazing job working with the local community, listening very closely to what the local community wanted, to provide a bit of a green lung on the edge of Penrith for people to be able to see a bit of wildlife firsthand, exercise, walk the dog, play. And we had an extremely lively and buoyant and noisy open day back in May, which was fantastic, attended by about 350 of the local people, which went really well. And community groups, young people, and lots of others have been doing lots of, plug planting, tree planting, hedge planting, putting wildlife back into the couple of fields that we were given a few years ago by a member.
It's been taken up so wholeheartedly by the local community, and they've been doing it all.
Yeah, and it exemplifies as one with several of our other reserves. We are genuinely holding pieces of land in trust for the local community and for wildlife for the future. So hopefully it's going from strength to strength, and we're really looking forward to the next few years. And so that's one thing I would highlight. Another one would be the fantastic work that you and your team do on nature reserves, and there's been a huge amount of work going into continue to improve our sites for wildlife, so that they're a kind of a core part of the future nature recovery network that we want to build. So that sounds a bit jargony, but basically it's very straightforward, isn't it? It's about seeing our sites, our reserves, as core for nature's recovery in Cumbria, and we need the wildlife to start to spill over into the surrounding countryside and spread and connect up. And it's absolutely imperative that we look after these nature reserves and make sure they're able to cope with the future. But it's also working beyond our nature reserves to connect up and to restore new habitats, to connect them up as corridors and stepping stones throughout the wider landscape in Cumbria. And the team working on those projects, particularly around peat and grasslands, have had a fantastic year. A huge amount of work has gone into restoring hundreds of hectares of peat around the county, ranging from the Solway Plains right the way up to the high-level mountainous peat, which, as we all know, is in poor condition or has been. So that work's been brilliant. The grassland teams have been working with and through local farmers and landowners to put wildflowers back into the grasslands where we've lost them. And then working in partnership is always very important to Cumbria Wildlife Trust, and everything we do is in partnership, actually, when you think about it. And people like the University of Cumbria have led on the restoration of pine marten to Cumbria. So we know they were coming in from the north, from the Galloway Forest in the borders in Scotland, but University of Cumbria have released, I think, about 30 or so pine martens over this summer and last summer. So not only is it important that we bring back missing species, but they have a crucial role to play in helping manage some of the problems we've got.
Putting back these kind of ecosystem engineers. In fact, a lot of the time we don't actually know, do we, what might happen when we put back these missing species. And one of the things that's missing from our countryside is free-ranging beavers. But we do have a beaver project going on, and we've been heavily involved with it, haven't we?
Yeah, and the good thing is the government has recently agreed that beavers can be released into the wild under licence. So That's really exciting. And we did a feasibility study a year or two ago, which shows that there's lots of scope for free-living beavers where they would do have really positive impacts. So, for example, they're brilliant at creating ponds, surprisingly enough, stating the obvious, which are fantastic for other species, whether it's water voles or dragonflies. They're great at cleaning water. Their dams filter out, pollutants and sediment, and they're fantastic at reducing the risk of flooding in the right places.
Slowing the flow. So we'll go straight over to Liz, and Liz has been out to talk to Elizabeth Ogilvie, who looks after the beavers up on Lowther, and we'll go and listen to Elizabeth now.
So Elizabeth, last time we met, you showed me the amazing beaver lodge, and you reckoned at that point there were 3 kits. That was about a year ago. Tell us what's been going on since then.
So in the last year, we've had 3 more kits. So we've now got 2 sets of offspring, and the lodge has probably about doubled in size since you saw it. And their larder in the pond is just absolutely enormous. There's sticks everywhere. And there's been a lot more activity this winter. So with all the rainfall we've had this winter, there's been a lot of new damming. They've built some really lovely dams along the stream that have sent the water on a new channel off into the field. So the field is much wetter even than it was when you were there. It's getting increasingly difficult to walk around without getting stuck. And it's looking really fantastic down there.
And tell me about the kits.
Yeah, so we had, like you said, we had 3 kits born last year, and then we've had another 3 this year. And again, it was a bit slow going with working out how many you've got. It's sort of looking through the camera trap footage and trying to figure out which one's a kit. And now, because we've got yearlings from last year and then the adults as well, and trying to identify individuals and figure out what we've got. But we're pretty sure now that it's 3 from this year. So it's quite a big family, growing family.
How big can the family get then? How big can this colony get without needing either new beavers or new territory?
So these kits are quite happy staying with the parents for the first couple of years of their life. We've been talking with the Beavers Trust, working quite closely with them, because we don't want the family to get too big or for there to be fighting within the family between the kits or the adult. But naturally, they'll stay with their parents for 2 years. And then once they reach sexual maturity, they might start to think about going further, going elsewhere, setting up their own territory. But apparently they can stay within a family group for up to 5 years, even. That's been seen in the wild. So we're not desperate that we need to be moving any on, but we're keeping a close eye on it. You can see in the camera footage whether they're fighting or whether they've got injuries and things like that. So we're just making sure that they all look happy and healthy.
Is their territory expanding? Do they need extra space now?
So because they're in an enclosure, and it's about 30 acres in total, they've got 10 acres of woodland within that. And it's quite hard to judge how much wood does a beaver need. Now that we've got more, every year you now see quite a big uptick in the amount of trees that they're felling and the dams that they're building, and the network of pools and channels they're creating now it's really amazing actually to see how it develops. So we are trying to make sure that we can still see that there's bits of woodland that they haven't yet touched, and so we're just making sure they've still got enough food to keep them going. At the moment they tend to be favouring the oak woodland, but that's the majority of the trees we have in that wood are oak. We've got some birch as well, which they also enjoy eating. And so we're just making sure there's still food for them there, which at the moment they're okay.
And in some places, beavers have been actually released out of their enclosures. Is that something that might happen at Lowther?
So we don't have a wild beaver release licence, which you need to acquire from Natural England. So we've renewed our enclosed beaver licence. So we've got another 4 years left of that with them in this enclosure. So sadly, they have to stay within the fence. I know other groups within Cumbria are interested in having wild beaver releases. So hopefully some of those will be successful, and we might be able to see wild beavers in Cumbria again.
So the beavers themselves are doing very well, but are they improving biodiversity on the site as well?
Yeah, so the wet grassland that beavers created, it's amazing. It's unlike anything I see anywhere else. So it's quite a unique habitat. And we're really lucky. We've got lapwings that breed on the estate. And so a couple of years ago, there weren't any that bred in the beaver enclosure. Last year, I think we had about 3 pairs. And then this year, we were up to sort of 8 or 9 pairs breeding on that wet grassland in the beaver enclosure. So it was, a really positive story in terms of other species that are benefiting that you might not expect. You think about beavers in the woods, but lapwings really like an open habitat, and that wetland that the beavers have created is benefiting them as well.
Fantastic.
Well, what an amazing thing that's going on up there at Lowther. Obviously, it's at Lowther, it's not on one of our nature reserves, but we actually chair the beaver group, don't we, Steve?
Yeah, we do. We've organised it for quite a few years now, so we're aiming to help those landowners who are keen on bringing beavers back, as they should be, just to help smooth the process and make things happen.
Brilliant. And hopefully we are going to be leading on beaver reintroductions in the future if we can navigate our way through the legislation and the licensing process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another thing, I think it shouldn't really amaze me that much, but I'm always amazed at how brilliantly Gosling Syke has been going. You know, from our first foothold in there when we used to work out of a porter cabin in Susan's farmyard, basically, and now we've got this incredibly thriving community hub as well as our northern office, and Liz has been back to talk to Adam, who basically runs Gosling Syke at the moment. We spoke to Adam in February. Liz has been back up there to have a look and see what's been going on, because nothing seems to stand still at Gosling Syke. It just goes from strength to strength.
Adam, we last spoke in February, I think it was, way back at the beginning of the season. So tell me the highlights of what's been happening at Gosling Syke over the year.
Yeah, hi Liz. Wow, this year's gone so fast, hasn't it? Well, yeah, Gosling Syke's been a hive of activity all year. So if we go back to the main things with the nursery, the plant nursery that we showed you around back in February, we've now got all of our orders out for the year. We've sent out more than 50,000 plants to various projects and community groups and external contracts to help the nature recovery in Cumbria. So that's been a huge success, of which the volunteers that you met as well in the potting shed, they've contributed massively towards that and helped us really produce a lot of good work down in the nursery. But also our lottery-funded seed bank project. So with our seed bank, we're now halfway through a lottery-funded project aiming to restore and preserve some certain key species in the Cumbrian landscape. So that's going really well. Our apprentice Aidan and Officer Dan, again with the help of volunteers, do a lot of seed collecting of rare and declining species, and also started the process to grow and plant those back out. So down in the nursery and the seed bank, yeah, it's been a busy year.
Which are the species you've been concentrating on in the seed bank?
It's a range of grassland species, typical of upland hay meadows and these habitats that are in big decline. Species like betony and globeflower, Dyer's greenweed, things like that, great burnet, wood cranesbill. So it's plants that should be more prevalent in these landscapes in Cumbria that are really struggling. And interestingly, there's the most recent red list was published quite recently, and two species, betony and marsh marigold, are now on that red list. And those are two species that we're growing at Gosling Syke.
So tell us what's been happening in the wildlife garden.
As always, our garden volunteers have been working really hard, come rain or shine, to help maintain our garden. The weather's been challenging at times, but we've put in a few new habitat examples in the garden, such as dead hedges, done something different with some of the grass and wildflower areas. So it's been a really busy year, and it's been really satisfying to see the volunteer numbers increase, and also kind of the well-being side of it, that people give us feedback that they love coming and getting involved.
And Adam, Gosling Syke's had even more recognition than it had when last I saw you.
We've recently won a Europe-wide award. So this is the European Award for Ecological Gardening. We won the Community Gardening category. This is quite a prestigious award across Europe. And earlier this year, I think early spring, I got some communications that we'd been nominated and put forward to go in for these awards. And then I think August, September, I got an email saying that we'd made the finals, and they wanted to involve us in the ceremony and the conference, which was just a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, amazing recognition for all the community of people that are involved at Gosling Syke, from volunteers to staff to community groups that we work with, engage with, to previous staff and volunteers who've worked here and helped develop Gosling Syke over the years. So it's very much a culmination of a lot of hard work. So yeah, it was absolutely tremendous recognition that we were not only in the room with those finalists from across Europe, but then to win was really was the icing on the cake.
Well, absolutely incredible. Like I said before, Steve, it's just been such a great success story with Adam at the helm.
Absolutely, and the other staff members up there, but really especially the volunteers, just do an amazing job. It's tribute to all of to everybody involved, really.
Absolutely, and Adam says he doesn't do any gardening anymore, and it's that whole community buy-in that has made Gosling Sykes such a brilliant and vibrant place, and such a great place to have our northern office base.
It's just really inspiring and a delight to see, and has been recognised, of course, through lots of Britain in Bloom awards and the feather in the cap. Yeah, is obviously the European Award for Community Gardening.
I must admit, I had no idea that he was over in Austria to pick up the award until the pictures came through on the social media. It was like, wow, that's just fantastic. And it's getting more exciting. We're actually able to expand, aren't we, at the moment?
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be nearly doubling the capacity of the nursery to grow plants that feed into nature recovery and conservation projects around the county, whether they're in community spaces, whether on road verges or whether they're in farmers' fields. So it's really having an impact.
And trees.
And now trees.
We're moving into trees, specifically for Skidder as well. And we're actually going to be able to grow a hell of a lot of trees, aren't we, to put into the back of Skidder?
Yeah, which is great.
So as well as Adam moving into growing trees and potentially tens of thousands of trees for Skidder, we've also been working with other growers, haven't we, in terms of setting this up for creating these habitats for Skidder?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really exciting and brilliant that we're engaging with a range of different organisations and individuals. We're working with Growing Well, for example, who set up this marvellous nursery over at T-Bay.
Tree Bay.
Apparently
it's called
now called Tree Bay.
Yeah.
We're also working closely with Haverigg Prison, who have a real expertise in nursery growing. I mean, they already grow virtually all the food for the prison and sell some externally, but they're going to move into trees for us. We're also working with the Lake District Wildlife Park over near Bassenthwaite, who are fantastically enthusiastic about helping us grow more trees. We also have a site up at Coal Springs and here at Plumgarst, just outside Kendal, where we've got small nurseries that will be contributing to the effort. So it's all really exciting stuff, and we're getting lots of people involved.
And hopefully we're going to be supplying all our own seed.
Yes.
Through the work of Rowan and their brilliant set of volunteers.
Yeah, it's good fun. It's very therapeutic, actually, collecting seeds, I found. And it's a curiously mindful, meditative process, collecting seed, I find, personally. Another
story that we visited last year was when Liz went out to talk with Amber about seagrass. Now, I was having a think about seagrass and about Amber's interview and the difficulty and the challenges that they're going through in trying to basically recreating missing habitats. So we'll go straight over to Liz, who's talking to Amber about how the seagrass project is going and how difficult it's been.
Amber, we last saw each other in April in the Walney Channel after you'd been planting some seagrass seeds. So could you tell me what happened next?
So excitingly, we did see some seagrass growth across our plots. We saw it at 7 out of the 21 places that we planted. It was only minimal, and we've done a lot of kind of thinking and figuring across the year to kind of think why that might be.
Was that a disappointing result for you?
Originally, I was a little worried about it because, you have this theatrical idea in your head that you're going to try it and then you're going to have this wonderful explosion of life straight away. And the reality of practically any restoration project, I think, unless you're incredibly lucky, is it doesn't usually work like that. And as I mentioned, this is a trial project. It's never been done in this region before. Even with this species, it's all fairly new across the entire country. So we're still learning things every single day about what are the best conditions to grow in, what are the pressures. So I think originally, yes, I was a little disappointed, but then after speaking to other projects and hearing how few seeds will germinate in general and kind of all of these other things that factor into it, and also knowing that we did see growth and we've also learnt so much from what we did last year that can then feed into our methods this year, all of that is actually not a failure at all. It's actually really, really important learning and really good. So yes, had a little blip, but then pulled myself together and realised actually how much we'd achieved.
So tell me about those learnings and what you're going to do differently.
So I think one of the biggest things that we've changed this year is instead of planting in lots of different areas but with fewer seeds, we're actually really condensing the number of seeds that we're planting in a location. For example, last year we took a 50 by 50 square and we planted about 50 seeds sort of individually within that plot. This year we're doing a smaller square, so 40 centimetres by 40 centimetres, and we're going to plant about 320 seeds in that area. So much, much denser. It means that, you know, if we do have some plants growing, they kind of provide a little bit of sheltering to each other. I hate to say putting our eggs in one basket, but that's what we're doing. That's a big difference from what we tried last year. That and the sites being a bit wetter.
So you're going to be planting the seeds in a higher density, but you're also going to be planting them in a slightly different niche.
We are. So last year we planted in quite dry locations comparatively to other areas because we didn't want to plant them in areas where they could potentially wash away. So we avoided the wetter bits that seemed to be less stable. But then because it was quite a dry and warm spring, the combined effects of that meant that those areas were very, very dry. This year we're switching it up a bit and aiming for some wetter areas that have a little bit more water in the sediment. We did sort of corroborate that with a lot of other projects that have kind of used those wetter areas. So hopefully, if there is a difference in how well seeds will do in wet versus dry conditions, we'll be seeing a difference from that this year. But again, who knows? It's all an experiment, so we'll see what happens.
And Amber, you've had a lot of help over the year, haven't you, from volunteers?
It absolutely wouldn't be possible to do this project without our volunteers. We have a fantastic team, which is growing month on month. So we now have 61 people signed up to the project. And I think 15 of those have been out with us in the last 2 months doing everything that makes up the project. So surveying, collecting those seeds, processing, clearing out tanks. It just means that we can actually get all of these things that need to happen done. And I think the total volunteer hours over the whole year is 434 hours of volunteer time. Absolutely phenomenal.
And you've had recognition too, haven't you?
Yes, so sometime back in, I think, late spring, it's all been a bit of a blur, so I can't remember exactly when, but we won the Northwest Award for Coastal Excellence. And again, that is an award that is shared across everyone who's involved in the project, especially the volunteers, because it just would not be possible without them. So that was a really, really wonderful moment for the project and a sort of, little moment to recognise how far we've come.
Brilliant piece there from Amber. And I think they show, in a way, just how difficult the job is, just what an extreme environment we are trying to recreate habitats in. And it kind of reminded me of what we're going to be trying to do at Skidder. The intertidal must be as challenging an environment to try to reintroduce habitats as between 400 and 700 metres on Skidder.
Definitely, but I think probably there's more experience on the Skidder side than perhaps in the marine environment. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But there's definitely a lot of experimentation, and it's going to be challenging, isn't it? But it is all pioneering work, and it is all hard.
Yeah.
And it needs a lot of determination and persistence. I think it's the same in peat actually, and in grassland. You can start to do the initial restoration work and put the conditions in place for a peat bog or a seagrass bed or a salt marsh, but you need to keep going at it. It's a process of restoration. You haven't finished the day you've planted the tree,
and
it takes decades.
Like you said, it's experimental in so many ways, and that's what's happened through peat restoration, hasn't it? And through all the things we've done over the last 20-30 years in trying new things and finding what works and refining that.
No, I agree.
So, as well as the seagrass project, the marine team's just been doing amazing things, hasn't it, across the whole of the Irish Sea? Give us a bit of a flavour of the other things that have been going on.
Well, for example, the team has been helping develop the Irish Sea network, which is essentially bringing together colleagues from around the 6 nations that surround the Irish Sea to work on a shared vision and to start to put together the plans for how we restore the Irish Sea to a much more healthy condition where you have thriving wildlife and thriving, sea bottom species. They're, also looking very closely at potentially damaging issues like, working very closely with developers of marine renewable energy projects, i.e. wind turbines, to make sure that we get the benefits of renewable energy whilst at the same time safeguarding our marine wildlife. We need renewable energy, but not at the cost of the natural environment.
One of the projects that is always at the top of the agenda for the Trust is the ospreys, because the Foulshore ospreys have just been such a great thing for the Trust, such a great flagship in terms of the massive rewilding and peatland restoration that's gone on down at Foulshore. But also about bringing people in and getting people involved and getting people aware of what nature needs. So the ospreys have been a great success, and Liz has been out talking to Alistair on a bit of an update about the goings-on on our Foulshore ospreys, because obviously we've got 2 Foulshore osprey nests now.
So, Alistair, we've had a fantastic season at Foulshore this year. Tell us what happened.
Well, I think we've had 3 really good bits of news, or very interesting bits of news at Foulshore this year. Our pair that have been with us since 2013 and have been breeding, our ospreys have been breeding at Foulshore for the last 12 years, had another 3 chicks who were all really well, really healthy, all fledged. And that makes 32 chicks that have fledged from that nest now, which is a phenomenal number. And given that 25 years ago we had precisely 0 ospreys in Cumbria, to have added 32 and to now have at least 14 active nests in the county, so that is a wonderful bit of news. What's even more exciting at Foulshore this year is that we ended up with another breeding pair of ospreys. Last year, we had a young lad from Cumbria turn up, this young osprey, and in the crook of a rather rotten old pine tree, he built a nest, which was, to be honest, no disrespect, a bit of a shambles, but nothing really came of it. Over the winter, when this nest was inspected, it was realised that the nest itself was not looking very safe, and the tree was looking pretty rotten. So a great big stake was put in, basically the trunk of another tree, and strapped on to the original tree to hold it up. Then at the top of the stake, a platform was built and some nest material and some sticks were put on there. So this spring, this fella comes back from his migration in Africa, lands in this tree, and he brought with him, or he met a new lady friend, a young lass, just 3 years old. So that's kind of the earliest ospreys breed. She was from Cooper in Fife, and they managed to produce 3 eggs. Now, sadly, a couple of the chicks didn't make it when they were very small, which can happen, and especially with a young pair when they're not experienced. But the third one did, and did very well, especially as she had all the food to herself. And she fledged from the nest. So that was 4 chicks from Foulshore. That is a record. We've never had that before. And the third bit of news was a very, very unusual one. On the main Foulshore nest, our male, White YW, was looking after his own chicks. The female, Blue 35, she had already set off on her migration. She'd done her bit, all that laying eggs, sitting on eggs, feeding chicks. The chicks themselves were grown up. They were pretty much ready to go. They were at the migration stage. And then one day, another chick appeared, about the same age as them, something from hatched this year, and started shouting and demanding to be fed. And so YW, he flew off, brought fish back, and this chick spent about 4 hours scoffing it. It was obviously starving. And this went on for about a month. Feed me, and he just instinctively kept feeding it. Now, he should have been well on his way to Africa by this time, but he stuck around with this foster child and kept feeding it. We tried to find out. It had no leg rings, so we had no idea who it was, where it was from. And then as time went on, YW was still feeding it, but maybe easing off a bit on the food to maybe encourage it to be a bit more independent. And in due course, it up and flew and was away. And then YW had a few days to himself, and very, very late in the day for him, then set off on his migration. So I think we can almost say we had 5 chicks fledging from Foulshore this year. We certainly had 5 migrating from it. And I think this sort of thing, similar things have been seen where chicks have been fed by birds that are not their parents, but I'm not sure anyone has ever seen one that has just taken up residence like this and been seen all the way through to migration.
Well, there's some amazing things going on with the
It is
ospreys.
remarkable, isn't it? When
Yeah,
you think
yeah.
about the story of ospreys at Falshon in Cumbria, actually.
Yeah, quite incredible, and it's brilliant that we have these conservation successes to talk about, because so much of what we do, my whole career in conservation, and when we're still losing species and habitats, and so much is going down the pan still.
Yeah.
No matter, even with our best efforts, but we do have some of these fantastic conservation gains along the way.
Absolutely, we must be optimistic, and the success here and with other species actually in Cumbria shows that if we take the time and the care and invest and put in the effort to save species, we can turn things around.
Yeah,
it's just that the forces that are driving those downturns, as you described them, are very large and very powerful and operating at a global level. Yeah. But that doesn't mean to say we can't have success, and we can achieve really positive outcomes and turn things around here in Cumbria if we make the effort and work in partnership and bring people together to take action for wildlife.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier in the podcast about these nature reserves being the core, but what we need to do is to then spread those species and habitats out into the wider countryside, and that's what we've been trying to do at Falshon and Meathop in the Witherslack mosses for a long time, and recently we've been able to secure it's all small beans, but new bits of land at the north of the site, which we are hopefully within the coming year we're going to be able to start to restore and wet up and to produce those habitats that are once safeguarding the peat that's under these fields, but also being able to recreate these fen habitats that ought to be around these bugs.
Exactly, and it's all about buffering and protecting these core sites. These are key parts of the jigsaw. Now, obviously we can never ever possibly own the whole of Cumbria for nature recovery, so it's absolutely important that we build this kind of network of critical sites which all together add up to lots more space for nature. That's what we're talking about, more space for nature. And we have to work very closely with other farmers, other landowners and local communities to enable this whole process. And it's kind of summed up by the phrase more, bigger, better and joined up.
Yeah. And the County Wildlife Site project is integral to that, isn't it? Yeah. Because basically we have the details of lots of great sites around the county that aren't designated, aren't recognised under the law, but they are also brilliant reservoirs for wildlife, and they're those stepping stones, part of that whole jigsaw that we need to fit together.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's been really exciting that this year we've managed to get the County Wildlife Sites programme back up and running, because as you say, these can be of equivalent, if not better, quality for wildlife than the designated protected site. So they're just as good as those. So actually the vast majority of our species actually still live in these county wildlife sites with no protection. So it's really important we know where they are, we know their condition, and that we work very close with the farmers and landowners that have the privilege of looking after them and owning them.
We can't really finish without talking about Skidder, with it being it's so big for the trust, isn't it? And it's been involving the whole trust, all our teams, all our conservation staff have been involved in it. So we're always looking for funds to carry on our work. And Jane Wilson, who is one of our trustees, has put forward this idea that me and her are going to cycle. We're going to do a charity bike ride round all our nature reserves in Cumbria in the summer to raise money for Skidder. And apparently there are lots of other people who are doing these charitable efforts to try to raise money for Skidder. Yeah, so if anybody wants to do a charitable fundraising event for any of our projects, then if they get in touch with Hazel in our fundraising team, she'd be very willing to help.
And can I just add, Joe, that without people making these kind of efforts and donations, our work simply would not be possible. And the more we can raise, the more we can do to put nature back into Cumbria. Yeah. And so we're extremely grateful, that people care so much about Cumbria's wildlife that they're willing to undertake these projects and put the time in. Yeah. So thank you everybody who's contributing, whether as a member, as a donor, or leaving a legacy. It all goes putting wildlife back into Cumbria in the place that we all love and cherish.
Right, well, we're coming towards the end of the podcast. Steve, give us a flavour of what's going to be happening in the year to come.
Well, there's lots of exciting things in the pipeline, which sadly, I need to tantalise the audience, but we're not able to announce fully yet. But there are several quite exciting things lined up for the new year. On the specifics on a range of things, so for example on Skidder, we're intending that the planting will start in earnest next year, and we're hoping by the end of the year we'll have completed about 1,000 acres of peatland restoration, so that is all looking really positive at the moment. We've also been very closely involved in the last year with developing, this sounds really jargony and long and boring and bureaucratic, but it's not. We've been working with Westmoreland and Furness and Cumberland councils to develop the local nature recovery strategy for Cumbria, which is a 5 to 10 year plan for how we work together to bring wildlife back into Cumbria and to, restore habitats and put species back into the landscape. We've been very closely involved in that, though it's been led by Westmoreland and Furness Council. So we're going to be getting behind that 100% and helping to deliver large parts of it, but also encourage, arm twist, persuade, cajole lots of other partners to get involved too and to deliver what we need for the county, so that by 2030 we have turned the downward trend that you mentioned earlier upwards. So we're going to turn things around over the next 5 to 10 years and be much happier with the state of Cumbria's landscapes than we are at the moment.
Yeah.
So those are key things, and lots happening, lots in the pipeline, and lots to be announced in the new year.
Excellent.
Very exciting.
Excellent. That is tantalising, definitely. That kind of moves me on, because I'd just like to finish with a massive, because the conservation teams get all the glory through the podcast, and we talk to all the people who are delivering these wonderful things on the ground and amazing work. But I'd just like to give a bit of recognition and thanks to all the people at Cumbria Wildlife Trust who are working behind the scenes, and the people who actually make this happen. Our phenomenal fundraising team who are always delivering and bringing in these huge pots of money. Without them, we couldn't do this work, could we? The marketing team, the people who put our magazine together, what a brilliant magazine it is. The people who do our website and our social media. Our social media presence has been superb this year, and I can't mention everybody because there's so many. But also the people who look after our members. Our members are incredibly important to us, and we have over 15,000 members now. But looking after those members, recruiting new members as ones fall off the other end is really, really important. And then the people who look after our finance and all the kind of administration of the trust and the behind the scenes, the people who make sure we get paid each month is really important. So I'd just like to say a massive thanks to everybody else at the trust who works so hard and doesn't always get the recognition that some of the other parts of the trust do.
Well said, Joe.
Brill. So we'll bring it to an end. Thank you very much, Steve. It's been great,
Joan.
great chat.
The amazing job you're doing on these podcasts. Fantastic.
and we can't go without saying a massive, massive thanks to Liz, who makes all this happen and makes sense of the ramblings that we seem to do for hours and hours to get a podcast out of it. And I'd just like to say, I hope everybody has a fantastic holiday period. If you can, get out to one of our wonderful nature reserves. Get out in the countryside and see some of our wonderful habitats and species while you've got the chance over the holidays, over the Christmas period. I know that's what I'll be doing. And we will speak to everybody on the January podcast in the new year. So have a happy new year.